Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Before I really get started, as normal, could someone please let me know that you can both see and hear me and see my screen? So this will be a chat window on the bottom right. Cool. Thank you very much. Okay. So welcome, everybody. Please feel free to use that chat box that you've just found for any questions that you have today. So my name is Sam. I'm the Academy Manager at Infigo, as most of you know at this point. I'm also joined today by Duncan from our customer support team, who's going to be looking after the chat. So if you do have any questions while I'm talking away, there's a lot to get through, so I probably won't be able to answer. Duncan is on hand to reply in text format, or we'll take your queries away if we can't answer them straight away. So this webinar will be around about 1 hour in duration, and the topic of this is going to be to look at a few label products, but purely using MegaEdit. So the fact that it's labels is kind of by the by. It's more a case of just actually creating some products from scratch, just using MegaEdit's out-of-the-box functionality. Last time we looked at Invent, this time we'll look at MegaEdit, and of course, in reality, you can use a combination of both. So the products that we're going to make are quite simple. They're just there to demonstrate the fundamental parts and capabilities of MegaEdit. You can take this information away and you can build on it and you can run wild with it. And of course, you can make some really complex products. Now, what I want to do is share this link with you. So this should be an open storefront. So you should be able to access these. I'll paste that into the chat. And also what you'll find on the template product, which is one we're going to kind of make to begin with, just as a foundation for all the others, is you'll find the ability to download some associated resources as well. This is just in case you want to follow along now, or if you want to follow along in the future, if you're watching this recording at a later date. This site will stay live after the webinar. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to make 3 label products today. Very similar in a lot of ways, but each with their own fundamental purpose, which differs, which is why we're making different products. So one of them is going to be batch product creation. So this is where we want to provide our customers with the ability to upload a CSV of data, and then it will automatically make all of our label products for us that we can then add to basket. So we're going to go ahead and make that. We've got an upload your own design. So this is kind of an alternative to a multi-part product. So as many of you know, multi-part product lets your customer upload a PDF. This is another alternative where, let's say you still want to provide them with an editor experience, but instead they're just dragging and dropping an image into their particular product. So in this case, a circular, quite small label. So we'll show that one. And then our final one will be design your own. So this is where the customer themselves will have the capability to add new image fields, to add new text fields, and design the label exactly as they want to. So 3 different bits of functionality to work on. Now, as I've mentioned, we're going to start off with a template product. Now, this is just simply so we have a common base for all of these 3 products. And it's actually quite a good habit to get into if you can. So you can do a lot of your configuration on the template product. You don't have to show it to your customers. You can leave it unpublished, but then you can make other products from that initial template just to make the process faster. So we're going to go ahead and make that first of all. Now, as always, I'm going to have a lot of shifting around between tabs, so bear with me. Okay. So, same as we did with the last webinar, which is in the same kind of vein here, where we are just going through and doing the product build workshop from start to finish. I'm going to spend a bit less time describing what I'm doing and just going through the steps. A lot of the actual things I'm doing have additional resources on the Infigo Academy or will be in previous webinars if you need additional detail on how to do it. I will be going at a relatively fast pace through this process. Right, so we're going to start off by building our template product. So product management screen. I'm going to add a new product, and this is going to be my label template for the webinar. I'm going to set that to be a MegaEdit product, and I'm not going to upload any indent package. We are creating this from scratch. That creates our product. I'm then going to go to our MegaEdit configuration for that product and start doing some initial configuration. With many of these tabs, as a lot of you will know, you need to assign categories that you make elsewhere. So for example, if you want to add certain pieces of clip art, you would create a clip art category in another location on Infigo, which I'll show you in a moment, and then just assign it to the product or products that you want to utilize it on. It gives you the ability to reuse the same assets over and over again on different products. However, we'll start off on the general tab. This is actually some things associated with this particular product. So we're just making a single circular label, so we don't need multiple pages. So I'm just going to change the page layout, make sure we're not using a booklet layout, and I want all of my pages as single pages. So nice and easy. We will do some additional changes on this screen on a per product basis as we move forward as well, but that'll do for now. Make sure you hit save and continue edit on each of these tabs when you make the changes. Now I'm going to start to make the assets that I need to assign to this particular product. Now there's 3 that we absolutely need to make, which are canvas, stock, and output type. The rest are optional as to whether or not we need them. Now these are done in a separate area. The easiest way to access one of these is just to type the relevant thing into the search box. I'm just going to go for canvas, MegaEdit canvas, and I'm going to add a new canvas. So I'm going to make label canvas for webinar, and it's going to be 50 millimeters square, this one. All I'm going to do is say 50 mil by 50 mil, and then save it. There is some additional things we can do with the canvas. We can make it dynamically sized, and if we want to do so, loads of different capabilities. In this case, it's going to be nice and simple, just a 50 by 50 canvas. I'm then going to go ahead and make a stock, so you can switch between the different MegaEdit resources over on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to switch to my available stocks, create a new stock. Again, some things that we can change in here. More details available on the Academy. In this case, I don't really need to change much. I just want a stock to be able to utilize. And the final necessary resource is the output type. So I'm going to switch to output types and create a new. And then there's a few things we might want to change in here. So MegaEdit's primary purpose probably was more photo book related. So a lot of the things in here you might find are things to do with covers, spines, spine thickness, that kind of thing. We just need to turn all those off on our output type before we want to utilize it for purposes such as a label. So for example, here I'm going to turn off my bleed. I don't want it in this particular case. It's not going to have covers. It's not going to have a gutter. It's not going to have a spine, and that's all we need to do. And now we've made those resources, we can use them over and over again on different products. We don't have to create one resource for one product. So it's a one-time task. Okay, so now we get to some of the optional resources. And what I want to do is add a label shapes category. Now let me show you on the actual product to show you what I mean here. So our products are always, or our canvases are always going to be square or rectangular. We can't make a circular canvas. So what we want to do is to put assets on the actual canvas itself, which give it that circular shape. And the way I'm going to do this in my particular product is to upload a clip art gallery, which gives us that circular shape. So it will be a white square with a transparent circle in the middle, for example, and a couple of other assets. So I'm going to switch to my general data resources. This contains a lot of the optional resources in MegaEdit. So you can see clip art categories, masks categories, so on and so forth. And I'm going to create a new record in here, which is label masks for the webinar. And I'm going to make this to be admin only. So if I'm doing something like controlling the shape of the canvas using something like this, I need to be able to access it as the administrator to build the product, but I don't want my customers to be able to add the same thing or interact with the same thing. So I'm going to make this so it's admin only. It will still appear to the customer, as in they will still see it if you've placed it on the canvas, but they won't be able to see it in the sort of clip art section available inside MegaEdit. So good little tip to remember. And I'm going to go ahead and configure it and just upload the relevant images. So I've got a few images here I'm going to drag and drop in just as an example. So I've got a blank PNG, which is actually quite useful. That I'll show you later on. That's another one of my little tips. I have a circular navy mask, which we're going to use more for aesthetic purposes on the actual product itself. Again, I'll show you later. And then we've got our white circular mask as well. Just drag and drop those to upload them to our category. Okay, a couple of other things to make. I'm going to create a placeholder category. So we've actually got some, well, what a placeholder is when you have an image frame, an empty image frame, it means that you have some kind of grayed out imagery in the background rather than just being a big gray box. So it's a bit nicer for aesthetic purposes. So I'm going to make one of those really quick. Configure that, and then once again, just drag in an image, which I'll need to get from somewhere else on my machine. Okay, and then the last resource we're going to make here is a spot color resource. So things for like brand colors and that kind of things, it's very useful. So I'm going to go to my spot color categories, add a new record, and same process. Now, this is slightly different because we'd actually need to define the color that we want to use. So I can just go add spot color, and then I can define a name. And then there's a few ways I can choose what the value is. You can either use a color picker, or you can enter an RGB value, a hex value, or you can do CMYK as well if you do it in this particular format. In my case, I'm just going to put in the hex values, but I need to find what they are. So I'm going to put 3 colors in here. Oops. And there we go. So those are my spot colors as well. Now, what we need to do from here is to actually assign all of these resources we've just created to our label template product. So to do this, we go back to our template product. Go back to its MegaEdit settings, and then we're going to go through the tabs, select the resources that we want to assign to it, and then make sure we hit save changes on all of the different tabs. Make sure we hit it for every single tab before we change. So activate the relevant resource and click save. I'm going to attach a font to this as well. So we've got some fonts we can use. Okay, so obviously there's more we could do to our template product. We could configure it as much as we like to use as our base product, if you will. But this will do for us for now. So what we'll find, let's just go and have a quick look at that product, and we'll see some of the initial configuration there. Or we won't, because I've missed something. 1 second. Output type. Okay, so there you go. You can see we've got a basic product set up. So it opens successfully because we've assigned all those different resources. We have a 5550 canvas. We've got the ability to add images and text, and we've got some clip arts selected and all that kind of good stuff. So again, there's more we could do to our template, but this will do as our starting point. So what we're going to do now, before we actually go ahead and create the products, is actually take a slightly different approach. And we're going to have a look at creating a couple of attributes to put on the product instead. So not just MegaEdit itself, and I'll keep this quite short just so we're focusing on MegaEdit primarily. But you'll notice on the products that I've given you access to, all of them will have on the product landing page a few different attributes that you can select from. Now, this could be anything that you want it to be. It could be materials, finish, sizes. It could be other information as well. So you'll see here that I've put in a multi-line text box where people can provide additional information. And this is really useful because it allows you to do things such as amend the prices based on certain selections, and actually, of course, define the product that people ultimately want to purchase. So let's just do this really, really quickly, just a couple of examples, and assign those to our template product. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to my product attributes. Now, what we do with the attributes is quite similar to what we do with the resources that we just created. We create them independently, and then we can assign the attribute to multiple products if we want to. It just means that we don't have to recreate the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to go to product attributes, and let's just create 2 for this, just to keep it nice and simple. So let's go with material, call that webinar. All we're doing in here is assigning some initial information to it. We're not saying any values or prices or anything like that at this stage. We're just basically assigning what the attribute is. I'll make another one. So additional data webinar. Now we can just assign our attributes to the product exactly like this if we want to, and then manually create all of the options in those attributes if that's what we need. However, if there are attributes which we're going to be reusing over and over again, so let's say, for example, in our business, we use the same 3 or 4 types of material that people can choose from, you might want to just pre-create those options on the attribute. So every time you utilize it on a product, they will automatically become available. Just saves you a bit of time and a bit of hassle. So for this, I'm going to go to product attribute values. Locate my relevant attributes. So this is the material one I just created, and just start manually creating some options that will appear in that particular attribute. So I've chosen material. We're going to have 3 options here. We're going to have paper, vinyl, and foil. And each of those will have a different price markup based on the one we choose. So we can also get the selection to change the price that's shown. So I will go with paper first of all. This will be our base selection, so there'll be 0 price adjustments on this one. We'll go with vinyl. This one will have an arbitrary 20% markup from the base product. So I can go with price adjustment of percentage. I'll go with 20%. And the final one will be foil. And we'll say that's a 30% increase from the base product. We can assign as many options as here as we like, and it doesn't mean that when we assign it to a product, those are the only options we have. We can still add or remove additional attribute values once it's on a product. Now, I don't need to do anything on my additional data because that's the one I'm going to leave as a text box if people want to put in any additional information during their ordering process. Now I'm going to go ahead and assign that to my template product that we made. So products. I'm going to go to my product variant settings, attribute tab, and then I can just go ahead and add the relevant records to here. So I'm going to choose the attribute that I want to add, say whether it's a requirement, and then input what type of control that is going to be. So I want it to be a drop-down list that someone can choose between for my material. And I'm going to insert. And you'll see that because we already created those global values, there's already a few values created within here. Similar process for the additional data. This time I'm going to make it not required because they don't have to type anything in there. And the control type in this case is going to be a multi-line text box. And that's it. So if we go ahead and view that product landing page again, you can see now that we have a selection of material type with a markup and additional data if we want to write something in. You'll notice it doesn't make any change to the price at the moment because we haven't specified a price, which we will do in a little while. Right, back over to MegaEdit fundamentals. So we're going to start making our individual products now. The first one we're going to make is our upload your design product. So if I just show you what this consists of. So I'll just go ahead and start that. So I'm interacting with this as a customer would. And what we've got here is a very simple interface. All we want to allow them to do is to actually upload images and drag and drop them onto our circular label. Nothing else. We want it to be quite nice and simple interface. I've clearly forgotten to lock something down. But yeah, there you go. So it's going to be nice and easy. They just have the ability to add an image. And then to drag and drop it into that label, nothing else. And then when they preview, they'll see a circular label as the output. Right. So let's start off by duplicating our template product. So we've got our label template product that we've just made. I'm going to go into that product and hit copy product. Give it a new name and copy it. And I'm going to immediately go and launch MegaEdit. There's no changes I need to make on the back end here. So I'll just go straight into MegaEdit and start making some changes in there. From now, I'm logged in as an administrator. So the changes I make will change the actual product template. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is to create an image field. And we're going to position that across our entire canvas. Now, you can see there that the placeholder's taken into account, so it's including the placeholder in the background. There's a lot of snapping to different parts of the canvas going on, and we want to make sure that the customer can't really interact with this frame too much. All they want to be able to do is to drag and drop an image into the frame. So as the administrator, if I double click on the frame I've added and go to the Details tab, this is where I get loads of different potential controls as to how we can prevent the user from interacting with it in certain ways. So the easiest thing to do when the situation arises to do so is to just say do not select, as it means the customer can't interact with the field at all. However, I want to make sure that they can still do certain things, so they can still upload their image. So I'm just going to remove the ability to do a lot of these other things. So I'm doing things like preventing size changes, preventing rotations. Don't open the pop-up window that I've got open right now. Don't allow them to delete it. There's loads of things on here that you will get the hang of as you start to use the process. And if you want to test how that's actually going to operate when a customer uses it, you can also always go to the emulate user mode. So that will allow you to interact with the field as your end user would as well. So you can see I can't really do much with it right now. Okay, the next thing we want to do is to actually apply that canvas shape. So you'll see at the moment, if I add an image, it's still our square canvas. And if I go for a preview, it's a square canvas. It's going to give us a square output. The way I'm going to go about this is to actually put that white circular border on our particular product, which is going to give us that circular canvas shape. So remember, I uploaded this as one of my clip arts. This is admin only, so the users can't access this particular field. I'm going to grab this one here and position that on our canvas. See, that's given us our circular shape. And then we want to make sure, again, that the user can't do anything with this. We don't want them to be able to delete it, and we want them to be able to interact with the things that are behind this. So I'm going to go ahead to Details, and I'm just going to say do not select. Every now and again, I'm going to go ahead and say save as product default, just so we're actually saving this template and we don't lose our work. Now, I hope this is making sense to everybody, but remember, if there is any questions, please feel free to put them in the questions box. Let's not give Duncan too much of an easy time of this hour. Okay, right. Let me just check my little list here. Okay, so what I want to do next is work on the aesthetics of the editor a little bit. So you'll see, as we've got at the moment, you can see the entire canvas. You can see the checkered background, and it's okay, but it could be better. You remember the one we were looking at here. Again, it's still fairly simplistic, but it's just making it so it's a bit of a tidier experience. It's all a single color, and we can't see the square canvas. Now, there might be multiple ways you can achieve this. I'm just going to show you one of the ways in which I work with it. So what you'll see, well, first of all, let's start off with getting rid of this black border we can see here and making the background to be a static navy color. We'll start off with that process. And a lot of these things can be done within the product options. There's a lot of things in here. It's your first port of call for any initial settings you're looking for when you're trying to do things in your MegaEdit product. So let's see, let's change a couple of things in here. I'm going to say background pattern is going to be a solid color. I'm going to specifically type in what that solid color is. And I'm going to make it so that my canvas movement is locked down as well. So they can't move the label around. It's just fixed on the screen. and they can upload things to it. So it makes it look a bit neater as well. The other thing we want to do is to get rid of that canvas shape around the square, just because the square shape isn't particularly relevant to what we're looking for. So what I'm going to do on that one is look at this section here. So page rectangle color. We'll get a bit smart with this. We'll say page rectangle color. We'll put an RGB value, and remember that we can put a fourth value in the RGB, which is transparency. So if I put a 0 at the end there, that will mean that the border becomes transparent. So you see here the border's disappeared. It's not updated the background color, but we do need to reload the product to see that. So let me do that now. Okay, we're halfway there. You can see I can't move the canvas around. It's all navy. The only thing we have now is a big white square for our canvas. So here's where we can get a bit more creative again. So what I want to do is to actually put another one of these types of fields over the top of our canvas, which is going to make it the same color as the background, but it's not going to be on the eventual printed output. So it's there for visualization and for aesthetic purposes only. Because ultimately, when we view the preview and create the output, we still want it to be white around the border, not navy. So I've got a clip art just for this. So it's a navy circle. Now you can see here, if I make it the same size as my canvas, there's a little bit of a quirk where you can still see the outline of the canvas. Easy way to get around this is to actually make the image you're using for aesthetic purposes just to overspill the canvas a little bit. So I'm resizing this. I've created it this size for a reason, and hopefully I know the values this needs to be. And there we go. You can see now that because it overspills the edge of the canvas, it's all now a seamless kind of look. Now, if we actually looked at this in the preview, it now means that our outline of the outside of the label is navy, which we don't want. So what we want to do is make it so that this new field, one, we don't want our customers to interact with it. So I'm going to say do not select. But I'm also going to find do not print. So it means that even though it's on here, when I go to my preview, we still see the white background. Okay, save that. A couple more things to do in the editor here is just to tidy things up. So we don't want our customers to be able to add new fields to here. We don't want them to add new images. We don't want them to add new text. So what we can do is go to our product options again, and we can look at tidying up the MegaEdit left pane or removing some of the capabilities. These are generally found towards the bottom of the product options. We'll need a bit of experimentation to figure out exactly where these are. But you can do things like turning off the toggle tab, turning off the fields tab if you don't want it, turning off the pages tab. And somewhere in here as well, we will have the ability to, I think it's under the name forbid, which is quite foreboding, forbid adding text and forbid adding images. So that will mean that no additional fields can be added. You can save that. And then we're good to go. So what that now means is that we can drag in an image, can't do much else, and then that's the output we're going to get. So our circular label with white around the outside. Okay. Now, So what I'm going to do next is have a look at the next product, which is design your own. So a slightly different approach on this one. What we're going to give our customers on this one is a really basic canvas like this, but it's a playground. They can do what they want. They can add their own images, upload, or utilize predefined clip arts and that kind of thing. So this, again, is viewed from a customer experience. Let's say we want them to be able to add clip arts. They can do so. But we also want to make it that it stays inside the bounds of the label. So if the things they move are outside, it actually only counts that as in the label, for example. And again, this is just one way of accomplishing this. There might be other ideas as for different users' way of doing things. Okay. So I'm going to go and create a copy of my template again. Oops. Okay, and there's going to be a couple of changes we make on here in the actual background settings. So one of the options we want to make available is that the customer can choose their own background color in this particular case. And it's going to be either a full color picker or they can choose from available spot colors that we provided. And again, there's some different ways you could do this. In our case, I'm just going to say within my MegaEdit config settings, I want to allow them to have a background color picker. Okay. What I also want to do is activate one of our scripts within MegaEdit. So if I go to my scripts tab, I'm going to activate a script in here. And if you can't see this, you might need to contact support, who will be able to enable it for you. But I'm going to look for my layer support script within MegaEdit and then save that. And what this will allow us to do, so if I go back to my completed product again, is that I can make sure that this white border is constantly on top, even if new fields are added. And that allows me to really make sure that that stays the case. So for example, if I go and add new images here, I want to make it so that I'm never going to be able to put things on the outside of that field. And the layer support script will allow us to do that. All we're doing at the moment is turning it on and hitting save, and we'll configure it a little later on. Okay, now this product has one additional clip art resource. So I'm just going to create one of those really quickly. And this one, I'm going to make sure it is available for customers to use. It's like a series of icons, just to use as an example in this case, but we want our customers to be able to choose from those icons. So I'm going to say show only for admins is false. Everything else is configured in the same way. So I'm just going to drag and drop all of the relevant images within here. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and assign that to our product. Okay. So I think that's all we need to do in our background setup of this product. So I'm just going to go and launch that in MegaEdit. I'm going to change my background color using one of the spot colors that we've defined. So using the picker that the customer will also see because we've allowed them to do so. And then I'm going to start off with the same process as before, one of my admin clip arts, and I'm going to make sure that I've got my mask overlay, which will give us that circular label shape. And again, I'm going to make sure that my customer can't interact with that field. So do not select. Right, so in order to actually use this layer script, you'll see that on this same page here I've got open, so that details tab, I've got something which has appeared inside tags and sequence number. And by default, it's just layer 1. Now, I'm choosing the number 50 here just because it's a very high number, and it just makes extra sure. But if I put something like layer 50 in here, that will mean that's always going to be on top, unless you happen to have something else, which is layer 51 or whatever. So if I say tags layer 50 and sequence 50, that will mean that's always going to be on top for the reasonable amount of fields that a new customer using this is going to add. Okay. Another thing we want to do here is to make sure that we're not checking for positional issues. So again, it's just a usability kind of thing. But when we start adding, or the customer starts adding new fields, you are going to see something like this positional error. But you might have it where the customer has clip arts which are out of the outside of the canvas. Maybe they're just using it to show a bit of the image or something inside the canvas. So having the positional issues might not be particularly relevant. So I'm just going to go for my product options once again. And a lot of options like this are available in here. So do not check for positional issues. I'm also going to change my minimum image resolution to make sure I don't get errors to do with image resolution for such a small product. And then I'll save those. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is just to tidy up the text creation option a little bit. So what I mean by this, if we presented this to the customer as it is now, whenever they add a new text field, it's giving them something that looks a little bit garish. They can change the font, they can change the size and all that kind of stuff, but why don't we give them something that looks a little bit nicer right from the start? So if I just put something in here, so let's go your text, and I will make some changes to this. So maybe I've got an initial font I want it to be. Maybe I want it to be a little bit smaller. And then what I can say, I can use this option here under the Manage section, which is Save as Default Formatting. So for any new text box that's added, any new text field, that same font formatting will apply. So if I save as default formatting, and now we'll see that if I add a new text field, it has that same formatting, which looks a lot nicer. Okay. And that is about it for that product. Of course, there's more things we could do. There's loads of options we could do to tidy it up and make it look nicer, change the functionality slightly. But in terms of the basic product we're trying to build here, of just create your own label, that works quite nicely. And what we'll see if we view the preview is that it maintains the shape we've got if I type something in there. Okay. So the last product that I'm going to make pure using MegaEdit is this one here. So you'll see we've changed the editor experience again a little bit where it's nice and tidy. We don't even, in some cases, need the bar over on the left-hand side. Maybe we don't need that information, so we can hide that completely. Makes it nice and tidy. We don't want, again, I've not locked something down, but we don't want our customers to be able to interact with anything on here. All we want them to be able to do in this case is to upload a CSV of relevant data. So this is perfect, let's say, for a B2B exercise where a shop needs to purchase a load of labels for their products. All they need to do is to upload the relevant CSV, add to basket, and all the different products will be available for them, really saving time and making a really quick process. So just as an example of what this will do before we start making it, if I say upload CSV, I'll show you the relevant CSV a little bit later on. Mapped certain parts of the products to certain parts of the CSV to make sure the information is going to the right place. And that's it. That's all the customer would need to do. So now if I go to preview, we'll see that the price is being updated. And then based on the CSV, we're also getting an updated barcode because it's dragged that from as well. So it can update the barcode as well based on CSV records. Okay. Right. Just keeping an eye on the time. Should be good for this. So I am going to make another copy of my label template. And again, there's a couple of things we actually need to change in the MegaEdit settings for that product itself. So if I go to MegaEdit config. So one thing I want to change for this particular example is something called server-side preview. So that means that when we're actually looking at the product preview, it's generated on the server and shown to you. What I've found is that when you're updating a barcode and want to preview the barcode changes, you need this server-side preview on to be able to see the updated barcode. So just a little tip to remember. Another thing is we want to choose the batch source. So this goes hand in hand with a script we're going to activate in a moment, which allows us to upload things to, well, upload the CSVs. So I'm going to go for CSV plugin and then save those. There's then a couple of scripts I want to activate yet again. So if I go to the scripts tab, and again, if you can't see these for whatever reason, you may need to contact support to help you with them. So we've got barcode field, which allows us to add barcodes of varying descriptions, of varying types. And I'm going to add the standard batch script as well. And then save those. Okay, so we might come back in here later on, but for now, I'm just going to launch the MegaEdit product. Okay, so what do we want this to eventually look like? Something like this. So we want the label to have a background color. Of course, we could leave it white. I want it to have a background color. Just one other little tip as to how you might apply a background color to your product if you don't want to give customers the ability to do a background color picker. So I found that it's quite effective to use a blank PNG. So if I get a blank PNG here, open up my, so this is a PNG with nothing in it, basically, a transparent PNG. If I go to the border and background options, I've then got the ability to apply a background color. which I can then apply. And that will give me that color. And then I can restrict access to that, so only the administrators can change it. It's just quite a quick way of applying colors to certain areas of your product. So that's our background color. I'm going to say that our customers can't interact with that, so do not select. And then same as we did with the previous products, I'm going to put our white border around this to make it our circular label product. And again, I'm going to say the customer can't interact with it. Okay, as we did with the other product, we want to make the editor experience a little bit nicer. So everything the same color and all quite uniform. And we don't want to look at the square canvas. So I'm going to do the same steps as I did previously. And bring that fourth element to the RGB. And we'll save that. And again, I'm going to put our larger navy background on here, which I'm just going to use for aesthetic purposes. And then make sure that our customer can't interact with that one and that it's not being printed on the final output as well. Okay, so now if I reload the product, the background color should change as well once it's updated. So there we go, we're getting our editor experience. Now, I'm just going to start formulating this a little bit. So to save a bit of time, I won't bother with the big currency symbol. It's just surplus, really. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say, excuse me, add text. And what I want to do is to actually, I can mix this with static text and dynamic. So we need to link some part of this text field with the CSV that we're going to be uploading. So let's take a look at the CSV really quick, just to give you some context. Here's what I've got. So it can be way more complicated than this. You can have way more columns. This is just nice and simple. So I've got a column which is called product, which has got the contents of our barcode, a very unrealistic contents of our barcode. And then I've got a price column, which is obviously the price point. And we want to make it so that when you look and get each of these is a record, basically. So we'll have one product with these two, one product with these two, and so on. But we need to put these column headers in here as placeholders. So if I go and say, let's say reduced to, as part of that batch upload capability, I can say add placeholder. And I can put in the name of a placeholder. Now, what you ideally want here is a placeholder which is the exact same name as the column from the CSV, as then the system will be automatically able to map the two. You can have them different, although you would have to map it later on. And that comes in as a placeholder like this. Okay. And then we want to add our barcode. Now, because we activated the barcode script, we can add the barcode the same way as we do some other field types. Now, because I'm interacting with this as an administrator, I can still move all of the different fields around, even though I've restricted it for our customers. Now, if I double click on that barcode field, I get a lot of options such as the type of barcode, how things are displayed, the colors, whether it's a white background, all of the bits and pieces. I'm just going to choose a code 39 as it allows both characters and numbers. And then in order to actually link this to our CSV, excuse me, all I need to do is to go to the details of the barcode and then assign a name to it. And the name needs to match the column of the CSV that you want to link it to. So in this case, my column is called product, if I remember correctly. And there we go. And then ideally, we want to make sure that we prevent interaction with these fields as well, because the customer doesn't need to do anything with this. All they're doing is uploading the CSV. Okay, now we are near the end. Apologies if we do run over by a few minutes and anyone needs to jump, but the recording will be available afterwards. So, one other thing I want to quickly show you, just as an example, is how we can actually configure, excuse me, some of the scripts. So as this is at the moment, using this batch script, you'll see that there's the ability to add new fields, which we've shown how to prevent, but you can also add new placeholders or create new placeholders. This is true for the customer as well, but maybe we don't want them to be able to do that. So what we can do is configure the script to hide some of these options. So each of the script will have different configuration options. You'll find help on a lot of them in the Help Center. The Academy might have some bits of information as to what they're capable of. But if I go to, if I can find my relevant page, back to my MegaEdit settings for the product, scripts, I'm going to locate the relevant script, which in this case is the standard batch script, and then go to config. This allows us to configure the script either on a product by product basis, so you can give it different rules on a product by product means if you wish to do so. Alternatively, you can control it on a global basis as well if you want to make global changes to a particular script. I'm just going to put in some predefined config options here. I'm not going to give them too much explanation at this stage. Just a couple of things in here. Save that. And what it means is that when I reload this product, we should now have far fewer options at the top. And it means that the customer can't add new placeholders, for example. So there you go. So all that's available now is the ability to upload the CSV, and it's a much tidier experience. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything I was going to show. I was going to quickly add some pricing and stuff, but not really got time, and it's just the basics of pricing anyway. As I've talked about before, this is sort of just the fundamentals. It's some basic things you can do with a few tips and tricks as to how you might do a few things. You can take this information and roll with it to make much more inventive and pretty products than I've made here. But hopefully that will give you a really good starting point. I hope this has been useful for you. And I'll probably do some more of these product build webinars going forward, as they something we're missing as part of the Academy, I think. I do know we're out of time, so if you do have any questions, please do type them in the questions panel. We can stay online for a few more minutes and grab any more questions. But thank you very much for listening. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, I will see you next time.